that place where you're like, there are so many things I want to make and so much fabric in my stash, and it's just too much and I have no idea what to make? That's where I am currently. And I was telling my husband that last night. He was like, well, what are you gonna do with that fabric that you thrifted? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, why don't you make it a witch's hat? After a few seconds, my fried brain was like,
we have to do that.
do I need this?
No.
But some might argue yes. Is there any practical use for this? Also no, but maybe yes. Let's get started.
So the materials I used for this project were this fabric that I thrifted, this that I also thrifted. It was an old pillowcase. I love the pattern, but I really just wanted to use the maroon. And then this, which I bought for Joann for tracing the pattern. Then it was time to take my measurements. First, you're going to need the measurement around your head where you want the hat to sit. And then you're going to need to measure how tall you want the hat to be. I went with 12 inches. And then it was time for me to use my big brain and get to work. So first I drew a circle, which was the same circumference as my head, and then it did not look great. So I had a little bit of a breakdown, and then I was like, well, I'll just fold it in half and do half of the circumference and then draw that out. And before you tell me that's not gonna work, look, eventually I figured out that that's not how math works.
That feels really big. Possibly I should just follow exactly how she does.
So I did it exactly how she did it in the tutorial. Basically, I created a donut shape where the inside was the same measurement as my head, and then I drew 6 inches out in a bigger circle. So I made little dots around the smaller circle. And this donut is going to become the top and bottom brim of your hat. So cut out one of these in the fabric you want on top and one that you want on the bottom. And then it was time to work on the pattern for the top of the hat. So I knew I wanted mine to be 12 inches, so I marked 12 inches, and then I started to create a 12-inch circle around that, but instead of creating a complete circle, I took half the circumference of my head and stopped there. So if I measured 22 inches around, I'll take 11 and make that curved shape at the bottom, and then I will cut this on the fold to create the cone for the top. Once I had my pattern pieces, it was time to cut everything. You'll notice here I am tracing 1/2 inch outside of where the pattern is. This is for seam allowance. So either include seam allowance when you are creating your pattern pieces or when you are cutting it out on the fabric. I used 1/2 inch because that's what I like, but do whatever suits you best. Now I ran into a small problem where I didn't have enough fabric to make the lining the same as the top of the hat, so the bottom of the brim would have to be different. I got a little bit creative and created this. I used scrap fabric from another project and the rest of this maroon. Been playing around with different designs, and so now it's time to get to sewing this all down. Don't ask me how this happened. It was an accident
that turned into on purpose.
Then I spent the rest of the evening watching Gilmore Girls and sewing.
Good morning. Not surprisingly, last night I did not finish sewing on everything to the bottom brim of the hat. Wow, that was hard to say. Bottom brim of the hat. We have 7 eyes left. I guess today we're just gonna keep going at it, and then we can connect the brim pieces and start getting really into like the construction of the hat. But let's finish this fun detail.
336 minutes later.
No, but really, this took me about 5 or 6 full episodes of Gilmore Girls just to add these details on the brim. And the reason is that it took a lot of hand turning and then lifting the presser foot, moving the fabric, putting it back down, and hand turning the wheel again. But at the end of the day, I think it was totally worth it because I loved this detail on the hat. Once I had finished it, I ironed it down, and then I placed the lining and the main fabric right sides facing, pinned it, and then ran that brim through my sewing machine, and then flipped it inside out, so that it looked all nice on that seam. Gave that a good press, and then I decided to make it a little bit stiffer in the brim by adding crafting interfacing. I got this from Joann's, just cut it out to be the same size, and then pretty much just shoved it into the brim.
Hello everyone. Today I am convinced we can finish this hat. All we have to do is make the lining for the top, and connect all of it together. First things first, I'm going to take the triangle piece I made and put it right sides together and run it through my machine. And then I'll show you how I'm making the lining and filling it. And
Why am I doing this?
okay, let's go.
I took the hat panel, folded it in half, pinned it, and sewed down that seam. And then it was time to make a lining for the hat. So you're supposed to cut this on the fold, but I didn't have enough fabric to do it on the fold, so I just put 2 layers of fabric down and cut out the triangle shape. And then I truncated it. This is because you could stuff the top. I didn't end up stuffing the top, but if you wanted to, make sure to cut off the top. And then I sewed down all of those side seams. And then I sewed the lining and the top of the hat together. And then it was time to connect the top and the bottom of the hat, and this was very difficult. I'll let this BB show you why. Now I have attempted to pin it, but there's like a big gap here, so it means I really need to work on wrestling with this to make it fit. It should fit. I made a bucket hat and it worked.
And then I lost.
I don't want to talk about it, but this should work. So I'm gonna struggle some more.
Much later.
I finally made it to my sewing machine, and let me tell you, this was hard. After I finished that seam, it was not looking that great on the outside because I had missed some fabric while I was sewing all of those layers together. So I decided to do the unthinkable and hot glue a ribbon onto it because I just simply did not want to think about how I could sew this on. And with that, the hat was finished.
This was so fun. I had so much fun doing this, and I love it. I love this hat. There's definitely still some things that need to be fixed. This seam is atrocious, and the fact that I put this on with hot glue is probably not the best move, but you know, I don't even care because I love it. If you would like to see me do more chaotic and fun sewing projects, feel free to subscribe, and I will see you next time you're feeling crafty. Bye.